We live in a world where acts of white supremacy and hatred are all too common. They've been going on for hundreds of years, as long as anyone alive can remember. But what you're about to see is an act of prejudice and white supremacy so foul that I must warn you. Avert your eyes if you're under the age of 18.
Für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Why the Hell Am I Still Allowing Myself to Live? Today we're going to be taking a look at an article in Time magazine that made me really mad. You know what this article is called? The White Supremacist Origins of Exercise and 6 other surprising facts about the history of U.S. physical fitness. And then it's got this wonderful picture of a bunch of guys wearing 1940s or 50s style exercise clothing. So I don't think I have to tell you that there are a lot of people who are very jealous of anyone who can stay in good shape or can lift weights and exercise and find that motivation to eat right and keep their body healthy and, have an inner drive and motivation. So instead of working on themselves to try and build this motivation up, most of these people just try to bring down those who stay fit. And what better way to bring down people who try to stay fit than telling them that their hobby, passion, sport is a white supremacist function. That seems to be the name of the game. They tried with the fat acceptance thing. That didn't really work because you can kind of just visually see what's wrong with that argument. So here we go with the white supremacist origins of exercise. So one thing that I noticed while reading through this article that is incredibly beautiful to me is that they mention in the title that the origins of exercise are white supremacist in nature, but it also says in the topic sentence, how did the U.S. exercise trends go from reinforcing white supremacy to celebrating Richard Simmons? Well, if this wasn't to sell a book, I would be very confused what they're talking about, because in this entire article, they don't even really make any kind of an argument as to why exercise is white supremacist. There's 1 or 2 sentences later on, but that doesn't seem to be the main focus of this article. If this were a YouTube video, it could be reported for not following the topic that's advertised in the tags and title. But of course, this wasn't on YouTube. This was on Time magazine's website. Now, because my audience is smart and aren't easily fooled by headlines, you'll no doubt soon realize that this is just for clicks. This entire article is just made to piss off people like me, and it did a good job. But as you read through this article, you can tell exactly what the motivation, other than clicks, for this article was because of the type of person who is writing the article. Matter of fact, I'll show you right now what I'm talking about. The author says, one of the things I set out to do in this book is to look at the change in how we think about our bodies and what's considered attractive. Until the 1920s or so, to be what would be considered today fat or bigger was actually desirable and actually signified affluence, which is like the polar opposite of today, when so much of the obesity epidemic discourse is connected to socioeconomic inequality, and to be fat is often to be seen as to be poor. So, this is clearly coming from someone who is feeling very insecure about themselves. I hate this argument, and it's a very common one that comes from the body positivity and fat acceptance people. Look, 3 things. First of all, it's not the case that it was seen as attractive before. It was an attribute that people sought after because it signified affluence, as it says in the article. But that doesn't mean that people found it attractive. They, in fact, did not. They did not find it attractive for people to be carrying that level of body fat around on them. Second thing, the level of body fat that was carried around on quote-unquote fat people way back then, before the 1920s, was nothing compared to the amount of fat carried around on people today. There is no denying that. Things like high fructose corn syrup and deep fat frying, as we know it today. I know that people fried things in oil before, but the way that we deep fat fry things and all the excess calorie dense foods that are available now were not available then. People were not as fat as they are today. So to say that someone who was maybe slightly overweight back in the 1890s was seen as desirable because of their social standing, not their physical attractiveness, is one thing. But to say that someone who is morbidly obese would have been considered attractive back then is just ridiculous. It's always been a thing with humans that the more muscular, slim, low body fat, high muscle percentage people were more desirable. And that is evolutionary. That goes back way longer than any human civilization. That goes back to hunter-gatherer days. The tall, strong people were the ones who would be the most likely to survive. Therefore, we are innately attracted to that. The third thing is that just because it was a thing a long time ago doesn't mean that, one, it's good, two, it's something that we should emulate, or three, that it's healthy at all. And now that we understand the role that obesity plays in heart disease and strokes and a myriad of other health conditions, we can make the conscious decision to say, hey, I'm not super interested in forming a partnership with someone who is going to make the choice to treat their body like a garbage disposal, because I want that person to be alive when we have children. Now, if you make that decision, that's on you. I don't care. But physical fitness is something that we're learning more and more. Every single paper that comes out supports physical fitness, be it epigenetics, cancers, heart disease, strokes, neurological disorders, congenital conditions in children. The evidence supports being physically fit. It says fewer complications in childbirth, fewer health issues, less money spent across your lifetime dealing with health conditions. There is absolutely no research that says, oh yeah, you can be perfectly healthy at this size. It's fine. There's no negative. That's just nonsense. Anyone who tells you that is completely and utterly. It continues. It was super interesting reading the reflections of fitness enthusiasts in the early 20th century. They said we should get rid of corsets. Corsets are an assault on women's form, and that women should be lifting weights and gaining strength. At first, you feel like this is so progressive, but then you keep reading and they're saying white women should start building up their strength because we need more white babies. They're writing during an incredible amount of immigration, soon after enslaved peoples have been emancipated. This is totally part of a white supremacy project. Now, two things here. The first one, corsets, yeah, horrible. Women should never have been forced to wear corsets. Those things are terrible for you. They smush your organs together. They push any fat that you have against your organs, which allows any toxicity produced by that fat to go straight towards your organs. It's kind of like forcing visceral fat on yourself. Also, I'm going to go on a mini rant here and basically just say waist trainers are the stupidest thing in the world, and I swear to God, every time I see one, I want to blow my brains out. Waist trainers do not work. They're stupid. They're a fad, and no one should use them. They're bad for you, and yeah, basically just waist trainers suck. That's what I wanted to say. The other thing is that, okay, there were white supremacists that were like, ooh, if we get strong white women, then we can have more white babies. And you end up with like the replacement theory people that we have today. It's like, okay, cool. They wanted to use exercise as a vehicle to further their cause because they understood that, hey, exercise is good for you. Everybody knows that. But I mean, hey, Hitler liked dogs. Like, do we now just everybody hate dogs because, because Hitler liked them? This is ridiculous. It's like, oh, exercise is a white supremacist project because white supremacists work out too. Have you ever been to a gym anywhere in the country, especially in the Midwest or the South? You'll see people with Iron Cross tattoos. They exist. Matter of fact, you probably see it in the cities too. And I mean, it doesn't really matter. There's idiots who work out. I don't know what type of an argument this person thinks this is, but I will tell you this is the only point in this article where she even mentions white supremacy. The rest of it is ridiculous, other than she does talk about Eisenhower and Reagan encouraging exercise for to be ready for the military whenever something happens, I mean, that's nationalistic, or I guess you could associate it with patriotism, but I still don't understand why the roots of all of America's fitness are white supremacists. They're definitively not. It's just something that, in the 50s and 60s, maybe people with nationalistic tendencies caught on to, or maybe in the 30s and 40s, people who were afraid of immigration grabbed onto. But exercise was happening way before that, and the types of workouts that we do, things like squats and bench press and things, just the big popular ones, those were. There was pretty much a select group of people that were doing those since early 1800s, and to try to ascribe the actual origins of fitness training to white supremacy is pretty wild, and it's clearly just trying to rile people up. And obviously I fell for it. But hey, if people are going to be nationalistic, that's really a difference of opinion between you and them, and you don't get to call everything that they're associated with white supremacy just because they don't agree with you. That's stupid. That's not what a reasonable person does. That's what we do here in 2022 because we're not reasonable, but that's not what a reasonable person does. So I'm going to wrap up with this beautiful bit from the article. Today you see quite a few fat people in the fitness industry who are operating from a better perspective, which is that your body size does not necessarily dictate your fitness level. We should not presume that because you're fat that you are not fit or that you want to lose weight. Well, let me just tell you, inferences are a thing, okay? If I look at someone and I see that they have little arm flabbies, they got the bingo wings, or that their face is a moon because they've put on so much body fat that their body can't figure out where else to store it, or that they've got cellulite, or that they're leaking out of their clothes because they have so much excess body fat, I can assume that they're not fit. I can assume that they're most likely going to have more health complications. I can assume that they're probably going to die before a person who is fit. Now, of course, that's not always true. I can hear the people in the background screaming, "There's fat people that live to the age of 90. Yeah, I understand that. There are genetic anomalies. But if you're morbidly obese and you live to 90, imagine how much longer and better you could have lived if you were actually in shape. Because we know, and it is indisputable, that carrying excess body fat is bad for you. Yes, it is. No argument whatsoever. That is the case. And if you're fat, I'm sorry, you're not fit. There is no such thing. Fat and fit cannot coexist. If you think that, you have no knowledge in this sphere, and you need to go read about 500 books. All right? All right. Glad we could agree on that. Thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you give it a like, comment, share, subscribe, all those beautiful things. I'm trying to reach that 1,000 subscriber threshold so that we can monetize and have some more fun with the things we do by bringing in some money to fund our projects. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time.